Hello and welcome to English 1302 online. We are in week 8 and we are starting module 3. Congratulations, everybody who has stuck around this long. We have 2 more weeks to go and we'll be finishing out this course. I hope it hasn't been too awful for you. Um, it's been interesting to say the least. All right, so this week we are starting on our final author, and that is Isaac Asimov. And much like the other two authors that we have taken a look at, we are doing some of the exact types of assignments. So for example, this week we are looking at the life and times of Isaac Asimov, which is the discussion board where you guys are coming up with interesting facts about him. I think you will find he was a very interesting fellow, sort of tragic in a way, just like our other two authors have been, but really super interesting. He is considered, I'll give this one fact, he's considered one of the fathers of science fiction. So be sure that you take a good look. Again, there are many good fun facts, some not so fun facts about Isaac Asimov. They're at least interesting. So be sure that you take a look at that. Of course, the first submission date is on a Wednesday, I believe, the 22nd, and then the final one will be on the Saturday of the 25th. Uh, the two stories are here, and those are really what I kind of want to talk about. So we are looking at Isaac Asimov, and just like we did psychological horror with Jackson, and we did dystopia with Vonnegut, we are doing science fiction futurism, basically, with Asimov. Now, when I say futurism and science fiction, I do not mean like Star Wars type science fiction. So I know that science fiction is probably not many people's bag, and that's okay. But it is a genre that is incredibly important, not just to literature, but to Americans, um, and actually us as well, because many of the things that we know and love have come from science fiction. For example, the phone that we all are addicted to was purely science fiction. The iPads and things of that nature were purely science fiction 40, 50 years ago. Yet, something like an iPad was included in the original Star Trek series back in the 60s. It was a pad that they could carry around and write on and type into and access the main computer with and scan things with. Uh, and lo and behold, about 30 years later or less, we had the iPad. The communicator was like what basically looks like our flip cell phones. So there's a lot of things from the space race that we would not have now if it wasn't for science fiction firing the imaginations of those early science, some of those early scientists, not all of them, but some of them like Asimov, as you'll see. We wouldn't have Velcro, ballpoint pens, uh, some the dehydration processes that we have for certain foods, like instant coffee, instant tea. A lot of these things were developed for the space race, just the race to get man on the moon. And a lot of the innovations that we've had in the medical field were also dependent upon the space race. So, science fiction, getting people interested in science, getting people interested in that sort of thing, uh, is heavily responsible for that. And most, if not all, people who are in science can credit some kind of science fiction literature. Certainly, the writers of today, the different movies and actors and actresses that we have, uh, can cite some of that. So, in any case, that being said, science fiction is a fairly important genre. Um, and the science fiction that we are looking at is less spaceship laser gun science fiction, and it's more pure science fiction. So, in other words, there is science involved, and it's a fictional story. So, that being said, we are taking a look at two of the stories written by Isaac Asimov. They're short stories, not his novels, to be fair. The first story is called The Last Question, and this was actually his favorite short story, as per him. And I do have a recording here. The audio that I have for you guys, it's not a video, it's an audio. So make sure that you can play an MP4, MP4 file. And it's Isaac Asimov reading the story himself, just like we did with Shirley Jackson reading the story. And I think it's much more interesting when he reads it because he loved this story. And I think that once you've some of the fun facts you'll find out about him, once you hear some of those, you realize that this being his very favorite story is kind of incredible. Um, Here is the PDF of the story. I do need to give you guys some information before you try to read it. Now, the story is kind of long, so make sure you give yourself plenty of time to sit and read it. And let me show you the conventions about the story. So again, it's about 9 pages, but it's it's kind of, well, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of out there as a science fiction story. So you're gonna want to pay attention. You're gonna want to be awake. You may even want to open this up and listen to the audio file at the same time. You're definitely gonna want to do that, actually. But I want to show you the convention about this story that is unique to it. So throughout the story, uh, this is one story that is written over a long period of time, billions of years to be exact. Again, science fiction. So it starts out in the year 2061, which is not that far from us at this time, but uh, it starts in 2061. So it starts in the future, and we're used to that. We saw that with Vonnegut, but it's going to go forward in time. Uh, I think a trillion years, a really long time. Basically, every time you see this line in the story, like right here and here and here, and it just keeps going throughout the story. Every time you see that line, the story is jumping ahead hundreds or even thousands of years, possibly even millions of years. Okay, and sorry, I don't know why it's not showing up for the rest, but it should show up for you. Um, so if not, download it, and then you'll be able to see it. And the download buttons looks like this. So every time the story jumps ahead, it's the same story, but different characters in the same story. And basically, you'll be jumping ahead into the future. So obviously, some of those characters may not be around, but it will show you different characters every time you jump into the future. Same story, different characters. There's one central character who remains the same throughout the entire story. Well, he doesn't remain the same, but this character evolves. So this character starts out as Multivac right here, and that character is going to evolve throughout the story. As technology evolves, so does this character. Actually, so does all the characters. So it is, like I said, kind of long. It could be confusing. So give yourself plenty of time to read it and listen to it. And I highly, highly recommend listening to this recording here and reading along with it. And it should take you right about 32 minutes. It takes him 32 minutes to read it, but you can always hit pause and whatever. So that's the beautiful thing about that. So that's the story. Of course, the discussion questions are right here. Be sure to read through those carefully when you answer them. I do have the references for the works cited pages, references or works cited pages right here for this story. And remember, this is just for your uh, for your essay, your final essay on this particular topic. You don't have to put that on the discussion questions. You just need to use these citations for this story. So that's the first story. It's a lot, but it's a really good story. Again, it was his favorite story, and I think that's kind of important after you have done the life and times of him. So that'll be due on that Saturday, next Saturday. The second story is called The Last Answer. Now, the first one's the last question, the second one's the last answer. When I was putting together this course, I thought it was clever that the two stories had those so similar titles. And it kind of is, but I'm here to tell you that the stories do not share any common characters or even a common timeline. Just that uh, bit of title, last and first, or last question, last answer. So, um, again, here is a audio. It is not Isaac Asimov reading it. It's someone named Adam Clark, and he does a pretty good job. This story is actually shorter, much shorter. Well, not that much shorter, but it is shorter than the last question. And I'm told it's a little bit easier to read. It is science fiction. It doesn't necessarily take place in the future, but trigger warning, it does involve somebody dying at the very beginning of the story. So just know that the main character is not alive while this story is going on. So it's really interesting. It's a different take on kind of the afterlife, I guess. So be sure to, I think most of my students find this story easier to follow uh, because it takes place in the present, whatever the present time is. Uh, but there, again, there's the audio of it. It's a good story. It's a different story. I think you'll find it's very different. Um, you might not like the ending, and that's okay. But there's the discussion questions for it. There's only 5 for this one. Again, the works cited or references entries for your last paper. So, but there you go. The reading and discussions, those are all due on Saturday. And then again, next week we'll be taking a look at Asimov and futurism and the same things, the compare and contrast, just like we do with Shirley Jackson and with Vonnegut to help you understand the paper. So we are in the 8th week. We have 2 more weeks. I'll be working to get research report number 2 back to you much sooner than we did the last one. That way you guys can get revisions in. I noticed a couple of you have already gotten revisions in for essay number 1, and that's great. So if you have any questions about anything, please let me know. Again, take it slower. Oh, wait, not quite done yet. There is some information in here. Um, let's see. I think the videos, yeah, there's videos here on the last question. Now you have to uh, submit your last question. I think, yes, the last question, discussion questions before you can watch this particular video. It's a very shortened version of the story, so I would say read the story, listen to the story, answer the questions to the best of your ability, and then if you still don't understand what's going on, take a look at this video, and it should help you with that. Uh, then there's a couple videos about the story, the last question, like the entropy, like what is entropy? That is a central theme to that story. That's part of that science and then science fiction. So you could probably watch these videos first if you wanted to. Um, I would say watch the entropy one maybe. The machine at the end of time is also, it's a brief discussion about the video, and this actually, the machine at the end of time video makes more sense after you've tried to read the story. So I would try to read the story before I watch that. Your mileage may vary. And then I think there is, yes, a video about the last answer. Again, the video is not, this particular video is not available until you've at least turned in the discussion questions. This is really just enrichment, these 2 videos, to make sure that you understood what was going on in the story. The discussion questions, that's for you to try to answer. That's the whole point of it. So, um, then there's a couple other videos that I wanted to share with you. We'll talk more about this video next week. It's kind of disturbing. But Isaac Asimov on AI is also a good video. It's a video of him actually giving an interview about uh, what his vision of the future was, and it's actually kind of interesting. So there's a lot here for you to digest this week, but the main assignments that are due are the life and times and the two stories discussion questions. So there you go. As always, if you have any questions, please email me. I'm happy to set everybody straight. I'll be trying to get uh, essay number 2 to you as soon as possible, much sooner than the last one. Otherwise, have a great week, y'all.